So we just reviewed how to find the trig function values, or just learned how to find the trig function values when angles are given in radian measure, convert the angle back to degrees, and do everything the same. So you're going to memorize your chart, so you won't even have to convert back to degrees. You'll just be able to remember from your chart that cosine of pi over 4, that's the square root of 2 over 2. That's what we want to get to. For now, you can convert back to degrees. But what if it's not one of our special angles from our chart? So 3.5, that's not on our chart. If you multiplied it by pi over 180, you would not get anything in our chart, or excuse me, by 180 over pi. So anyhow, these are not special angles from our chart. How do we find the function values for that? Well, there's a big hint in the directions. When we're asked to round, we know right away we're going to use our calculator to find these values. So this is as simple as typing in sine of 3.5. But we need to make sure that we're in radian mode. So I'm going to show you in a minute to make sure that you know how to convert your calculator between radian and degree mode. Okay, but just quickly I want to remind you about how trig functions work. Remember, when you plug in a trig function, or plug a number into a trig function, you plug an angle into the trig function and get a trig ratio out. So in this case here, 3.5 is the angle. It goes into the sine function, and the trig ratio will come out. Okay, and we're going to round that ratio to the nearest 10,000th according to the direction. So even though you're going to have decimal angles going in, that still is an angle, and you're getting decimal out, that's a trig ratio. So it's critical that you understand angles go into the function, ratios come out. And when we have inverse trig functions, which we're going to use down here on this next problem, when you have inverse trig functions, well, it's the reverse, or we should say inverse. In this case, you'll plug a ratio in and get an angle out. So make sure you keep that straight, that angles go into trig functions and ratios come out. So let's look at sine of 3.5. Depending on your calculator, it's going to be really straightforward. Well, it's going to be straightforward whatever calculator you have. You just have to make sure you're in the right mode. So if I were to pull up my Inspire calculator that we've been using, we'll see it's already in radian mode. So if I want to know sine of 3.5, I pull up my trig functions. I select sine. Sorry, mine freaks out a little bit. Sine of 3.5. 3.5. I hit Control Enter to get a decimal approximation, and there is my decimal approximation, negative 0.3508 when I round to the nearest hundredth, negative 3508. And that's it. That's all I need to do. Plug it into the calculator, and I'm good to go. If I'm using the Inspire, cosecant of 5 is very easy. I would just pull up my trig functions, hit cosecant of 5, Control Enter gives me the decimal, negative 1.0438, negative 1.40, I already forgot, 0428. Okay, if I weren't using the Inspire, then the reciprocals are a little bit trickier, but cosecant really is just 1 over sine. So I would just type in 1 divided by sine of 5. So maybe you're working with the TI-84, or in the TI-84, first, or an 83 or 89, they're all basically the same. First, I need to make sure my mode is in radian mode. So I'll hit the mode button. I can see right here that it is in radian mode. Okay, so I'll second quit, get out of that. And now I can just type in 1 divided by, open parentheses, sine of 5, close both parentheses, and I get the same function value that I got from my Inspire calculator. So if I'm not using the Inspire, then I just have to remember to do 1 over sine, and I get the exact same function value. Okay. And lastly, just to confirm changing between modes, I just showed you if you're using an 84, 83, or any of these TI models, we just hit the mode button and select radian to make sure we're in radian mode. If we're using the Inspire, we change modes by document 7.2, and we just select radian or degree mode. So document 7.2 for the inspires. And then lastly, maybe you're using like a basic scientific calculator. So that might look something like this. And these ones can be a little trickier here. But if we hit the mode button, actually,